My father didn't believe in revenge.
We believe in Fremen.
Let me fight beside you.
Reload!
He said
I
that.
got that. Thanks.
I won't be fighting for him. I'm fighting for my people.
You young pup.
Do you believe in Paul?
There are signs.
The prophet. Why is that a bad thing? Use it. Because all my visions lead to horror.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it.
Hello, welcome to this What Do You Want to Watch Spoilercast for one of the year's most anticipated films, Dune, Part 2. I'm Ashley Hobley, join me today, Dylan Black.
My Dune.
Yes. Yeah, so this is obviously going to be a spoilercast, but before we jump in, we've both revisited the first film. You right before you watched the second film.
Indeed.
What are your thoughts on Dune Part 1, I guess, now?
I gotta be honest, since I did a back-to-back screening, it really did just blur into one very long movie. Because, I mean, yeah, the second one just starts, right? And it doesn't really feel like, it just feels like we're going again. So, yeah, It was good, hey. I think by the time I got to the end of it, it was just one
complete,
big thing. Yeah, I just got the complete story.
You watched the full 5-hour cut of Dune.
It does feel like I watched the full 5-hour cut.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, Dune, fantastic. I feel like definitely on this watch, it felt like the first half of a complete story, which I think I listened back to our spoilercast just of the first one. And we did have we're like, yeah, it kind of feels like they've left it at a point where it's clearly just the beginning of a story. But yeah, obviously the scale, the music, the sound design, the costume, the look of everything, clearly beautifully set up in that first film. And Villeneuve picks up from there. So yeah. All right, let's just jump into our discussion of Dune Part 2. So please be aware we'll be freely discussing anything and everything about the plot themes in any of the movies. So if you haven't watched it, come back later. Dune Part 2, playing pretty much everywhere. The interesting thing listening back was we got Dune late, from memory, here in Australia.
We did. Yeah, it was shit.
And it got released on... It was during that period where it got released on HBO Max, because it was just after the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to just watch this at home for the first time.
Yeah, so this is the first time everybody has to go out to cinema to see this movie. So go do that. So it makes a lot of money. So we can get another one potentially. With that said, let's jump to our discussion of Dune Part 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve, screenplay by Denis Villeneuve and John Spaihts, based on Dune by Frank Herbert, starring Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Zendaya, Charlotte Rampling, Javier Bardem, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Christopher Walken, and Leah Seydoux. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while on a warpath of revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known universe, he endeavors to prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. Dylan, what did you think of Dune Part 2?
Loved it. It was fantastic. This is cinema, baby. There's my short version. I know. If you want it. That's my box offer quote. Cinema, baby.
This is cinema, baby. Okay.
Yeah.
Make that the clip. Yeah. I'm also of agreement. It was a great time in the cinema. It was a little bit of a slow burn to the first half, but once it gets into the action, it's like some of the best stuff in recent memory. It's really good time. and I'm glad that it's releasing now and didn't release when it originally did, because I would hate to see this movie having to compete in like the Academy Awards with Oppenheimer and and Barbie and all those other movies. I think this is probably might be a front runner for the Academy, but it's going to win a bunch of Academy Awards this year, next year. So, yeah, Timothée Chalamet. I think this is one of the most interesting performances I've seen from him so far. It's very, I guess kind of against type. He's normally plays whimsical or like more subdued characters, and this one, he's finally grown into this leader.
He's a bad
character.
Guy,
yeah, he's a bit of a badass. Yeah, the cast across the board, Zendaya is fantastic. Javier Bardem is great, especially in the opening. Probably he's probably like the standout in the first hour or so, eliciting a lot of laughs in my cinema. I don't know.
I also got a lot of laughs in mine as well. Yeah,
he's having a lot of fun. I think one of my main criticisms was I feel like a lot of these. I don't know if enough of the supporting characters have enough time. Would be my one criticism. I would mainly Rebecca Ferguson's character and also Austin Butler. I feel like could have used more. And even characters
Austin Butler got more time than he did in the original movie.
That's true, but when you're building him up to be the main antagonist of the movie, he has one long fight.
Here's the thing.
You're building him up to be the big final boss, I guess.
Yes, but I mean, he gets like a whole at least 10-minute fight sequence to build him up as this ruthless badass. Like, how long is that? How long is that cut away? No, but how long is that cut away? That includes like the scene before the fight, the gladiator pit, and then the scene after as well. Like, that's probably like 15, 20 minutes there, I feel.
Maybe, but I feel like that could have been spread out maybe a little bit more over the course of the film. It feels like we have a good hour plus maybe of Paul becoming a Freeman, and then we cut to back to the Empire to cut to, Austin Butler fighting in a pit.
Because the other thing is, I had no problem, but I also yes, he's the boss of this film, if you want to call it that, the final boss. But I mean, the movie's not about, at least the way I take it. And again, I haven't read the Dune book, so I got like nothing to go on.
No,
but
we should make that clear. We know barely anything about Dune other than
we watched
the first movie.
Watch the first movie. I know it's got worms in it. Well, that's I know as much as I knew coming to the first.
Don't worry,
movie.
You made that same joke.
Glad to know I've really improved over the years.
Yeah.
I like the movie's not about Paul overcoming this big boss at the end of the movie. To me, the movie's about Paul becoming the bad guy. So I don't actually take anything about, like, I never viewed Austin Butler's character as this, he needed all that time because it would have been wasted. Because I'm like, well, the movie's not really about there being another bad guy. It's like Paul's the bad guy, or he's becoming the bad guy.
Interesting.
That's how I take it anyway.
No, I can definitely read. You could definitely read it that way. Yeah, I think I would have loved a little bit more time. I feel like the Léa Seydoux cameo or segment.
Is it a cameo if it's set up for a... Because that's, you know what I mean? Like, they introduce all these characters in the like part 1 and part 2 and stuff. And, it's even things like, well, the Emperor was never in the first movie and then he's in this one. But these characters introduced, like, I have no idea if this Léa Seydoux's character is more important in the following books. Like, who?
No. Yeah, absolutely. But in this movie, it feels very weird.
It only feels like a cameo because she's a substantial actor that we know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, really, her role is to kind of make Austin Butler's character a direct, like, parallel to Paul with, him going through the similar events of, like, putting his hand in that box and, like, taking his DNA, somehow. But I talked to Buddy about this after we watched the movie. I feel like with Rebecca Ferguson's character, I think we would have liked to have seen more of her spreading like spreading the message of spreading, like seeing her like sowing distance and getting people to convert to believing that that Paul is the Modib. Is
Where
that
do you
it?
put that though?
I don't know. You just sprinkle it in, figure out a way. I mean, that's probably more like, it would be really nice if they showed us and not just told us that this is kind of happening in the background. But I mean, you said, this is a 2.5, almost 3-hour movie.
Yeah,
I can understand that is not a priority.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I definitely would say I don't have a lot of the same problems because when it came to her, they did enough in her sprinkling of scenes. I always felt like I got enough from those to understand what she was doing in the background, and the tell me worked, at least for me. That the telling me of what's going on and what they did show me, I understood exactly the type of person she was coming. And if I had to pick between like choosing to get more scenes with her, I would probably say no, especially within the runtime. Like, I love Rebecca Ferguson. I think the direction of this character hurt.
Sure, wasn't you yelling at her?
Yeah, I told her to get the fuck off my set. You know, I love her as an actress and think she's fantastic in this, but I definitely feel like having all that extra time with Paul, again, as someone who's sitting here going, the movie's about how he becomes the bad guy. It's really important to have a lot more time with him, with the Fremen and Zendaya and all this sort of stuff. Like, I understand exactly what his mother's doing in the background. I don't need to see it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of an interesting element of, like, again, we're probably really getting into the themes here of and how, kind of relevant this story is, kind of like a bunch of invading people trying to take this land from these native desert people and like claim it as their own and extract resources and
crazy.
Just murdering them with,
I mean, it feels relevant because obviously Ukraine and then you got Palestine and whatever else, but it also just feels relevant because that's just humankind. And I think that's like, obviously the story is just, I don't know. I don't know how you're supposed to read into the story of Dune. To me, it just seems like, power corrupts, religion is bad.
Well, I mean, that's the other key. The key thing here is there's this underlying religious prophecy elements.
Yeah.
There's constantly the underlying thing, and like,
not in a positive way.
The power of like legend and prophecy and like religion is kind of what's being explored through this film.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, obviously Zendaya, the closest one to Paul, is the only one who's kind of turns away and doesn't want to believe at any point. The only atheist in this side, the entire Freeman side of the.
I mean, Paul was fine until he drank that fucking worm juice. Like.
I mean, absolutely, it's completely true. But
the moral of the story is
didn't have a choice. It's prophecy.
Yeah, don't drink the worm juice.
Don't drink the worm juice. I mean, that's also very interesting. Like, that juice is, I guess you would consider it just pure spice, right?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So because the land is full of spice, because the sandworms are there,
drugs.
All the sand is going through them and getting bits of whatever the pure spice is, So spice is just worm droppings.
Yeah, all good drugs are someone's droppings,
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff there. Really interesting, but you're clearly of the side that Paul is a bad guy by the end of the movie.
Yeah, Paul's a bad guy. I don't know how you read it a different way, to be honest. Like, by the end of the movie, like they purposely tried to show you Zendaya out there, and she's us, right? She's the audience. You're supposed to feel for her and go, man, like, I don't know. You either understand. I feel like either you're of the view of Paul's the bad guy or Paul did what was necessary. But
yes,
it was a necessary evil, I guess. But like,
was it? What was evil about what he did?
Well, do you not feel like now, like, but how's the movie end to you? Like, when you think back on the movie?
Paul gets his revenge against the Emperor by making him give up his role as Emperor. Yeah.
So now Paul's the Emperor, and he's got all these raging planets. The other kingdoms or whatever have said that they're not going to bow down to him. So now what's he doing?
Don't know if that's what the next movie's.
I mean, by all sounds of it, he is like, based on the way the movie ends, it sounds like he's just about to go out and fight them all, because you got a bunch of Fremen jumping in the ships. They're going off. They're going to war.
Well,
right?
is he going? That's not his choice.
And
they could have just bowed down to him, you know.
And that doesn't the narration from what's her name? How's the randomly shows up this movie as a baby?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy is the sister or whatever. And doesn't she say something about that now? No, hold on. It was Rebecca Ferguson's card. One of them says something about the religious.
No, I think it is
now, or the war of religion or whatever. I'm like, whatever. So when you say war and religion, it's probably not a good thing.
I think it is both of them talking to each other.
Talking to each other at the end of the movie. Yeah. So they're talking about. I mean, look, that's how I took it. That you've got Paul, who was so afraid that if he headed south, north, whatever else, I can't remember, that all these bad things were going to happen. And guess what? I think it's happened. Yes, he's overthrown a bad person, but now he's in power, and he's just going to go based on the end of the movie, he's just going off to go fight and kill a bunch of these other people. So now you're going to have thousands of people.
Well, those people could just choose not to fight. You know, you just accept that the emperor gave up his position. Gave his daughter away in marriage, you know.
Have you watched Star Wars?
they had a duel, Dylan. You know, he won, but fair and square.
Mm.
I mean, watching this movie just really makes it very clear how much Star Wars was influenced by Dune. You know, sand planets, you know, special magical abilities. Person driven by the dark side, driven to the dark side, you know, potentially, you know, this terrible figure, you know. I think, Paul and Anakin have very similar paths, you would say. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they turn to the dark side, so
yeah. And I mean, it's also very clear this movie has had, or this book has had influences like on a bunch of stuff, like you know, I think I mentioned you know, a movie like Avatar clearly influenced by Dune. You know, a bunch of foreigners go to a planet to collect a bunch of resources that is considered sacred by the native people, you know, and then an outsider becomes a leading force for the native people, you know. Yeah, so I'm sure this isn't news to anybody.
I mean, the funniest thing about the plot of this movie is, like, if it wasn't so, like, at least to me, obvious that it's done in a way in which Paul is the bad guy at the end, it would be like a super, like, white savior story for a bunch of...
See, that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people... I think people are going to split it that Paul is the bad guy.
I mean, Paul is the bad guy.
But I think a lot of people are going to read it as Paul's just a hero. He just did what he needed to do. He manipulated his way to the top. This is a generation that grew up on Game of Thrones. We can respect the person who particularly maneuvers their way into power.
I mean, but Daenerys was the bad guy by the end. That was the whole point.
Was she, though? Or was she just poorly scripted? Was she poorly written to a corner? You know,
I mean, poorly written into a corner doesn't change the fact that she's a character and thought she was written as the bad guy.
I guess. Yeah. What did you think of the action set pieces and that kind of stuff in this film?
Yeah, really, like, obviously you've got all the hand-to-hand combat stuff was really, really good. A lot better than the fight scene from the first film, the main one we got at the end with Paul. Is like, obviously that's like a training and more time on whatever else, but then all the big spectacle stuff too as well, like taking down the ship, the Fremen taking down the ship that time, or whatever, the spice thing, all that's very cool. And then obviously the big finale, which again sort of helps, because the final fight scene of the first film is, I think I remember seeing a lot of people complain, it just felt, you know, for the end of a movie of that scale, it felt a little lackluster. But obviously it was meant to be such a big moment for Paul. It's the first time he kills someone. But then watching them back to back, it really does just feel like the middle of the movie, and that makes a lot more sense there. And then this movie actually provides you that huge set piece that you'd want at the end of a sci-fi blockbuster with a bunch of people riding fucking giant sandworms in the battle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought the really good action sequences. I love the opening of the movie with them, you know, traveling desert and being ambushed by the Harkonnens. And and then the Freeman pretty much taking out the Harkonnens, and they're just bodies dropping. It was very cool visual of like Paul and his mother like trying to avoid getting squashed.
It's funny, actually. The other thing I'll say about Rebecca Ferguson, watching the films back to back, her signs of like the direction her character heads, I don't feel like comes off as that. It may, if you watch the second one without having rewatched the first one, seem like it's such a jump. But like when you go from the first one, the scenes of her like muttering to herself and like freaking out over the Reverend Mother and stuff showing up at the first one. It does show signs of someone who, I don't know how you want to put it, but like, I mean,
she was always kind of pushing for this. Was always her plan? That's why she had the boy.
Yeah, it does. Like she consistently shows signs of someone who is just a little bit unhinged underneath it all, I would say.
Yes. Or like but maybe too religious, I guess, would be. Overly faithful.
Yeah. Because I guess that's the thing. If you jump into this one, you could be like, oh yeah, like I can't remember.
It's a little bit weird.
It's like, how do we get from here to there? But yeah, watching them back to back, it's just
it's like, oh yeah, I can see the signs as to why she like as soon as she got powerful, Also, I think like because at the end of the last movie, she's like, give us, let's not go with the Freeman, just get us off the planet.
Like,
we'll go off and be. We'll go off and we'll find a way back home to our home planet. We'll get away. But now she's full on, let's take over Arrakis in this movie, But that's only really when, they force her to drink the water of life.
Water of life.
Or worm juice. Worm juice. Yeah. Very cool. Like, she's really fantastic in, like, all the different scenes and, like, kind of manipulating everything. That kind of stuff. Again, I would have just liked to have seen more of that. Sandworms. Let's talk about sandworms. What would you think of Paul riding the sandworm?
I thought it was pretty great. I thought it was pretty cool. I still don't know how the hell they get off them.
That is the key. When you said that, just my entire immersion of this movie just broke. It's like...
That was my big takeaway after watching these films back to back. I was just leaving the cinema going, don't know how they got off them. Don't know. 7 out of 10.
I'm imagining all the people on the back of it just yeeting that bassinet.
The closest you ever see to someone like showing how they get off is like you see Paul like it's cut in a way it makes it seem like he's just jumped off and the sandworm's like taking off in the distance. But I'm like, it doesn't eat you, bro. Like it just like how do you make sure it just doesn't?
I guess it goes forward.
Yeah, but they made us at some point. I reckon they sat down and they went, "Fuck, we don't know how they get off," and then they tried to. Like, you know what? We just won't show it. Problem solved.
People will just not think about it. So, Denny, anybody in the cast in the crew of Dune, how they get off the sandworm?
That's what my question would be if I was on.
Why is no one on the press tour
asking this question? Yeah, how they get off the fucking sandworm?
You ask stupid questions like, "What's it like to kiss Zendaya?"
If you could speak to your younger self, what would you tell them now? Ask the hard-hitting questions, people. How do they get off the sandworm?
But fantastic visual. Like, it's huge. It was like cool to like kind of see. I guess it's a POV kind of thing, like of Paul on the sandworm and seeing like buffeted by sand. I guess they're using the hooks to hold up like certain flaps, which I guess the sandworm needs to have down, so it. When it's underground,
I thought they were just getting into them cheeks. You know what I mean? Like some sort of cheeks.
There's a reason they're holding them up, so they can't dive. Because if they dive back into the sand, they're all fucked. All the thought process around that. It's cool going into this, we knew Josh Brolin was going to be another part of it, but as we mentioned in our last Spoilercast, we're like, oh, it's really weird. Josh Brolin just disappeared in the middle of the movie.
He does, yeah.
He does. And now we know why. He fought Dave Bautista off screen, lost, and then went work with a bunch of spice pirates.
Yep.
Now he's back. Good times. Good to have him back, He was enjoyable. I will say, Dave Bautista's character done dirty in these movies. He just feels like he's a bumbling oaf the entire time.
I mean,
what has he done right at any point?
He came across like that in the first movie, though. Like, he never comes across. He just comes across as like I can't remember Ruckus or what. I don't know the character's name. Anyway, Mad Max Fury Road. You know, the son of the. You've watched that movie, right?
Yes.
Am I talking
it's
to you?
It's been a while.
Yeah. You know, you've got old mate, the main bad guy, right? You know, the mask and shit. His son, who's the real muscly dude, right? Similar sort of thing, right? He comes across a big muscly dude, but he's like, Dad, that stole our women. Like, that's how Dave Bautista comes across in these movies. Dad, they stole our spice. That's how it comes across.
Yeah. That's true. Any other things you want to talk about?
I thought Florence Pugh was very good. I'm biased, but
this movie made me more interested in the idea of that Bene Gesserit's TV series
with like her as
with the sisters and all that. Like, I guess kind of manipulating things behind the scenes. I guess of the galaxy would be the idea.
I'm gonna spoil. Here's the things I know about Dune that I've heard from people.
Yeah.
These may be spoilers for future films for people who know, because I don't know if they would do these other things. Here's what I know about Dune outside sandworms. Bene Gesserit or whatever, big part of every book, right? So them doing a TV series makes sense. For all I know is that Paul dies or something by like the third or fourth film or something, and then they end up jumping ahead like thousands of years, and but they're always part of it, like their sisterhood or whatever. So that would make sense to me. I'll tell you the other fucking thing I know that I know it's an offhand thing. Apparently they revived Duncan Idaho millions of times or like thousands of times, or some ridiculous amount of like it becomes a subplot about reviving Duncan Idaho. And I gotta tell you, out of context, I hope that doesn't happen because that's ridiculous. You know how they just keep making clones of people in those legendary Star Wars books, and then everyone's like, let's not go there.
Oh, so that's what that's inspired by.
And then we fucking ended up with Snoke, right? I don't know if the reason Star Wars did clones is because apparently in these they do clones and they fucking like bring back Duncan Idaho and shit. Anyway, here's the things I know about Dune: witches in space, sandworms, Duncan Idaho, and then I think the last book was written by the Sons or something.
Yeah, the Son has been writing a bunch of prequels and sequels.
Yeah,
based on,
and it jumps ahead thousands of years at some point after Paul dies. There's everything I know about Dune. Everyone. Thank you for my Dune history list. I spoiled Duncan Idaho for you. Yeah.
But yeah, Florence Pugh is fantastic. Great outfit.
I loved it. I thought it was really cool. Princess, like space princess outfit sort of thing. I thought it was cool. She's doing her American accent here.
Yes,
quite works. I thought that was because the thing is, you got to remember the second you're in space, you got to pick the accent, right? But now I want to know because I'm like, was it a directorial choice? Or did she be like, you know what? I think this is outside my normal accent. This is more like proper American,
and more royal.
More royal, yeah.
Which is weird to say. Like American would be more royal than her natural.
They would love that. Her dad, Christopher Walken, the Emperor, really good. Christopher Walken nearly doesn't do a lot of Walken. Like a lot of his Walkenisms. There's one moment where he done one a bit and he was like, hey, princess, carried to watch up my ass for fucking 1,000 years. He does that for a second, but otherwise I thought it was quite good.
Yeah. I will say, Austin Butler looked fantastic. Sounded fantastic and saying that he did sound like Elvis. So props to him, And yeah, their fight scene, very cool.
Kiss my shoe.
Yeah.
Lick my boot.
Yeah. Very intimidating, and even the visual idea of like that whole segment being pretty much in black and white. Or is that a visual? Was that a choice, or is that planet just in black and white?
See, that's how because they purposely show you some parts in color, like her binoculars or whatever. Like Leia Seydoux' binoculars are in color and stuff. So I'm like, is it just that's the color of the planet? It's like void of.
Yeah, there's something.
And they paint him black before he goes out. So I'm like, it's not in black and white. It just everyone looks like they're in black and white, and they do that on purpose. I know, I'm very confused. But it looked cool. Cinematography in this film,
and I mean,
good shit.
That's what all that matters in the end.
Yeah, just matters. It looks cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the scene where Paul kind of like rallies everybody, like, and pretty much says, "I'm the Messiah. Get with the program," and like gets all the Freemen to like.
You're saying you don't think he's a bad guy, but then you're talking about how good that.
I
scene
mean,
was.
maybe he is the Messiah. I don't know. You know,
we know he's not the Messiah. He's just a very naughty boy.
Well, maybe he is the Messiah and just didn't know that he was the Messiah. You know.
I don't think he's the
You
Messiah.
know, if enough things about the prophecy are true, then you just have to go along with it. You know. He's already getting visions of the future and that kind of stuff. You know?
Doesn't make him a Messiah.
I don't know.
That was the scene. So when that scene played out, I'm like, "Ooh, dark side." He switched to the dark side, and I'm all Team Zendaya, Team Chani, or whatever her name is.
You're doing what he has to do to help these people. You know.
There's that scene where she slaps him across the face. I was like, "Yeah, bitch, fucking."
I mean, that was weird. It's like they said, like, there's a couple of like very big coincidences. It's like we need the tears of the fountain or whatever she's called, her name is part of the prophecy.
Yeah, Chani or Chani.
Yeah,
or whatever.
So she has to cry and give him
a
little, to wake him up, whatever.
But also, like, key part of that scene that is, I think, subtly put into point out how dumb the prophecy and everything is. She does not do it of free will. Yeah, like free prophecies would just happen, right? They just happen because they're meant to happen and stuff. But a big part of this movie is that Jessica knows it's bullshit deep down, and she's twisting the narrative behind the scenes by telling people and getting people on his side and stuff. And even to the degree, he's in the voice, and then even to the degree that she uses the voice to get her to do the tears and stuff. So again, subtle detail, but very important to point out. It's not prophecy if you're forcing the hand of people and making people do stuff.
I mean, it's still a prophecy because it came true. Yeah. That's how prophecies work. It doesn't matter how it happens as long as it does happen. You know? Yeah, I think there was some other thing that kind of irked me, but I can't remember exactly what it was. So clearly couldn't have been that important.
Music was bad in this one.
Music,
watching
really?
Yeah, watching back to back, music was a lot more, just stood out more than this. Maybe because there was more action scenes.
There wasn't the continued.
Yeah, well, I mean that was cool, but like, I feel like I got
it wasn't like every single time.
Yeah, so that was good. Music was good.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer winning another Academy Award,
possibly.
I
feel like this will be up for VFX, music, cinematography, best picture, best director. I don't know.
Production design, all the like.
I don't know if he'll get any actor nominees. It's the only thing.
I know. It just depends on what else comes this year.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, that's it. What did you think of it being revealed that Paul is from Harkonnen blood?
Yeah, I mean Luke Skywalker, right?
Oh yeah. Turns out he was his father. Fuck no! It didn't even click. Her grandfather is the same as I am your father.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it didn't surprise me as much, just because again watching it back to back. But they make in part one is like that whole scene about talking about the witches mixing bloodlines and stuff like that. So having watched that scene only a couple of hours prior to this reveal, I think my brain was just like, yeah, that makes sense. They did talk about doing that. Yeah.
Again, this raises the question: how did Jessica come to be away from the Harkonnens? I guess.
I mean that is.
Was she just kidnapped or?
No, that is a big question. I don't think it's not a question I need particularly.
No, it's not a question you need answered. It's just like,
but it is
It's like, what? Yeah. She didn't even know she was a Harkonnen. You know.
Well, Palpatine used to steal force sensitive babies.
No, apparently, Palpatine fucks. So
Palpatine fucks. Yeah.
The other thing that made me laugh hysterically is Stellan Skarsgård's at the start. He's like, I know he's recovering, but he's got like a bunch of balloons attached to him. It's just like floating on the side of frame.
Yep.
It's like so ridiculous. I don't understand.
In the scene where he gives Dave Bautista the like necklace to show he's the warden of the planet, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so weird.
There's lots of weird shit in this movie, really, and even subtle stuff like that just makes me wonder, like, was that written in the book or
like that he's
floating
was
there,
being held up by a bunch of hot air balloons? I can't imagine, like, Frank Herbert, if he did. Props
Frank
to
Herbert, I reckon smoked a lot of weed, right? Like all the best creators.
He partook in the spice, yes.
He partook in the spice, yeah. I reckon he partook in the spice.
Wouldn't put it past him.
No, I reckon that the weirdest thing in this is Javier Bardem's performance, which is the only weird thing between movies. Is the only standout thing from part 1 to part 2. Is in part 1 he's a lot more
stoic.
He's like, he's like an Obi-Wan sort of dude, right? He's he seems he's the leader, but he's stoic and whatever, mystical and whatever. And then part 2 starts and he's like,
he totally stands Paul in this.
He like makes a joke like 10 minutes into the movie. It was very weird. Coming off here, part 1, I'd say that's the only tonal thing that just doesn't add up between the two movies. Is his like nothing against? I think he's a lot of fun. Stilgar in this movie is a lot of fun, but like character wise, it does like there is a jump.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing from the first one is there's that big fight vision that he has of like wearing like a gold armor and that kind of stuff that never gets paid off here, but again, could be potentially paid off in the future.
Again, I feel like this is the thing about this movie is a lot of it's not spelled out because it expects you not to be a dumbass, Ash, right? So if he is seeing visions in the first movie of him talking, and they do the whole fucking first movie, they see him visions of talking to the dude he kills, right? The point, at least as far as I'm aware, and always has been, is to point out that his visions aren't actually like truthful, future. Right? They're just visions. And like Master Yoda says, don't trust in the visions. It's a sign to.
But he still went south, and the exact thing that he saw happens.
Does, but he had all these visions about speaking to old mate, getting these things. It doesn't happen. He sees these visions about Chani stabbing him in the fucking stomach in the first film. Doesn't happen, at least not in this one.
Not yet.
You see all these visions about Jessica with their baby, but their vision is of them inside the Fremen place that gets destroyed. Doesn't happen because that's now destroyed. You see these visions in the first movie of the fight scene that actually happens at the end of this movie, but where it's revealed that it's Paul's face under there after he does all these flips and stabs. The person that does all these flips and stabs in this movie, and it's basically edited the same way, and again, maybe this stood out because I watched them back to back, is Chani. It's not him at all. So, again, there's lots of these things of like his visions, and the point is, the visions are nothing. Like, they're just visions. Yes, they could be possible futures and whatever else, but they're not set in stone. And the reason he goes to the dark side and turns into bad guy at the end of the movie is because he starts believing his own bullshit. He starts believing his visions.
No, he saw a vision truthful. That this was the only way. He went full Doctor Strange. He saw the one multiverse, the one timeline in which they succeed. This was the only way.
If the next movie, whatever the next book's called, Dune
Messiah.
He fucking Messiah. Yeah, well, that fucking adds up, doesn't it? No, that fucking adds up. Dune Messiah. Yeah, he would be a fucking Messiah, wouldn't it? Dune Messiah. I reckon it opens with an opening crawl, right? Text from bottom of the screen to the top. Paul Atreides killed everyone. He's a shit cunt now. Anyway, we killed him. Moving on to the next character.
Yeah,
he has a son. His name's Duke.
No, I mean, I tell you what. After watching this movie, I'm like, fuck. Maybe I need to read these books.
I feel like they're.
I don't know.
The reason I've never bothered is because everyone's like, man, they're hard to read. Like they're deep. They're like,
dense.
Yeah.
I mean, these movies are dense. Like,
yeah, but it's, I can take it in. I can take it in.
You like we were meant to record this yesterday. You're like, fuck, doing that back to back. That was a bad idea.
It was because it's a bad idea. It's just
it is not an easy breezy watch. It is something you need to pay attention to, keep focused on.
Yeah.
Take every little bit of dialogue that is delivered because they're Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Just quickly, side note. I'm sitting here last night, right? I'm looking at the time, going. Now, if this was a Marvel movie, I probably would just recorded it, right? Not to shit on Marvel movies, but shitting on Marvel movies. I would have been like,
recent
whatever,
movies, yeah.
But I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I'm like, I don't think I have the mental capacity to talk about this movie
in the way it deserves to be
in the way that I feel like I should. Like I'm coming in there now and I'm, you know, like I'm good. But last night I think I would have been like, yeah, whatever. He's a fucking bad guy, maybe. I don't know. I can't bother arguing with Yash because I'm too fucking tired. Anyway, you're wrong. You've got a wrong take on the movie, but it's fine.
It's fine. The other last thing, I loved all the like Freeman lore that is also at the start of the film of like them like sucking the moisture out of people.
Yeah.
Even the Harkonnens are like, oh, it's full of chemicals, but you know, it helps with the cooling stuff, our cooling elements and that kind of stuff, not drinkable. And then the idea of them, when you die, you get all the water taken out of you and poured into that reservoir, I guess.
That was destroyed.
Yeah, but like she said, like all that water, there's like generations of water in that pool that is, you know, and the idea is that eventually there'll be so much water that it will make Arrakis, you know, a green land again.
How did they ever know it was actually green? Is my question.
I don't know.
We see no scripture. We see no, like they have no. They don't. It's just like said. They're like, you know, like it used to be green. But I'm like, is this just a pass down from generation to generation? But again, could just be bullshit. False hope.
I mean,
you know?
that's religion.
That is religion. Yeah. So
it's like, oh, guess what? We're all going to heaven. If you're good, we're all going to heaven.
Watch the first movie because again, I think sometimes watching these back, like part 1, part 2, I've just some things that probably don't stand out to you. First movie, they have the scene where they first go to the trees, and then Paul goes outside and he's talking to old mate with the palm trees, and he's like watering them, and then he goes, "Oh, this," and then he goes, "Yeah, no trees are native to here."
Yeah.
Okay, well, with no trees,
like
I understand
we're
that
using
if like
so much water to keep these trees alive.
Yeah, and he's like, they could water 100 people or whatever. But I'm like, okay, no trees are native to here, but you're telling me that people used to think there's trees here. So I'm like, yeah, but even if trees die off, they'll still technically be native to there.
You know, maybe something got introduced to the ecosystem of Arrakis that completely changed it.
Spice.
Like fucking giant sandworm.
Like people.
Well, that too, you know. That probably didn't help. What do you think of the idea that there's this solution? At the end of the movie, it seems like all these people are leaving the planet. All the Freemen, they're like, this planet is sacred to us. It means a lot to us. Let's get the fuck off of here as soon as we possibly can. Let's get on these spaceships. Let's get out of here.
I didn't take it there. I thought they were going to fight people. That's what I'm saying.
Fight people in spaceships that they've never been on before? I don't know.
I thought they were just taking off to go find the people and fight them.
I thought they were all leaving to go back to the Atreides.
No, I took it like
planet.
I took it as they're going off the fight. So
maybe. I mean, I think it's very kind of well.
I mean,
I'm sure they will fight eventually.
6 hours deep.
I don't know if they're like, this is what they're going to do right next. This is the next.
Maybe it's like maybe it'll be like Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. They'll just the next movie it like starts and you've missed the whole war. You know.
I mean, apparently the next book takes 10 years after
the
first one.
So.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Opening crawl. Paul killed a bunch of motherfuckers. He's a shit cunt. Done. He's now an emperor that rules with an iron fist. You know? He turned into everything he hated.
What are you gonna do?
Need to send in the Kingslayer. This really is Game of Thrones now.
Any other final thoughts on Dune Part 2?
No, it's good shit. Can't wait to watch it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't do it back to back. I'm just gonna. I'm waiting for the Blu-ray, but.
All right, not that committed. All right, let us know what
you don't watch it.
Maybe I will. I don't know. Got all the stuff on at the moment. Let us know what you thought of Dune Part 2. Let us know, importantly, is Paul the bad guy? Is he the bad guy or just a bad guy? I don't know. Let us know by going to explosion.com/Twitter or jump to Discord at explosion.com/Discord. If you want to help us out here at What Do You Want to Watch, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser. Leave us 5 stars, and you can leave 5 stars, or just tell people about the show. And if you've enjoyed this episode, thought it was worth $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosion.com/support. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess. Also, it's very weird that apparently everyone in this galaxy has an array of nukes. They just keep hidden.
I feel like that's how you can tell this is based on an old book. They're like, Man, the nukes, you know.
Everybody gets some nukes. Everybody gets nukes.
I will love you as long as I breathe.
This prophecy is how they enslave us!
It's not a prophecy. It's a story.
I don't care what you believe. I believe.
I am Paul Atreides, Duke of Arrakis.
He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it.